It's been another week of not having a job. So let's see, as I make this video, I had worked my last official day last Wednesday, and then I went back to the office this past Monday to just check in and kind of say goodbye to a couple of the people I work with, my boss and HR manager, and then headed out. And that was really not any particular ado to be made, just is what it is. And then I spent my week kind of doing a few useful things like updating LinkedIn and updating my resume and dinking around, talking to a few people about jobs that I might be able to find when I get down to Arkansas, which does seem promising. Got turned down for a job, which I had applied for before all of this actually began. And that's okay. In any case, it's still, reaching out, making a few contacts and having some decent conversations. Then I went to the county fair with a friend of mine, and we walked around, and it's kind of a cool thing to see it happening. It's a little bit, I guess, lackluster in a way. It's fun if you're going with somebody who makes it fun. Like, that's really what it all boils down to, I think. Like, you see the food trucks, but then you realize, well, they're kind of not super special and kind of overpriced to a point. And then there's rides over there, and they're pretty cool to a point, but they're not outrageously cool. So it's pretty easy to just kind of look around at it and take in the vibe and enjoy the summer afternoon and do a little bit of people watching, but not necessarily actively participate too much, because it just isn't really that big of a deal. Certainly not when you compare it to things like the Puyallup Fair in Puyallup, Washington, which I used to go to when I lived out there. That was a huge fair that took up multiple city blocks, and people would travel in from all over the place to attend it. In any case, it is still nice to get out and just take in some of the sights, and that's been my goal this week, to go to places that aren't necessarily extremely exciting necessarily, but they're still capturing the sense of community and the sense of place. And it'll be fun to look over these videos in future years and see the people and see the familiar places and just kind of reminisce about it. And I think that's something that video can do better than photo. It's really easy to take a lot of still photos, but then do you really page through all those still photos? Maybe you do once in a while, but with videos, it's a lot easier to just kind of, put them all together into a seamless montage and actually watch all of them and travel back in time. It definitely is interesting, though, like just thinking about how much more meaningful it can be to go to little events like these if you're with your spouse or you're with your family, especially if you have kids and things like that. And, it can be definitely a really enjoyable, delightful experience in that particular case. But just not so much if you're just kind of going by yourself or just with, some random buddy or something that is there, not super interested one way or another, So anyways, we walked around the fair with my friend Cooper. It's actually kind of interesting. He's one of my very few good friends, and the way this happened was when I moved out to Montana, I was initially an overnight manager at the Walmart store there in town. And I walked in the first night, and this guy named Cliff was the overnight manager, because there would be more than one. And so he was the guy that just kind of showed me around and said, hey, welcome to the store, welcome to the state, here's your set of keys, and now I'm going to go home and go to bed. So I got to know Cliff because he was the first person in Montana to really introduce himself, the first person I really got to know. And then we worked together for a while. And then I went on to do the corporate office thing, which was still in Montana. So I continued to live in town because our market office for the Walmart stores in Western Montana is also based in Helena. So I worked in the office, and he continued to work on the night shift. Then he retired. And we continued to be friends. And his wife is also a really nice lady. She used to work for the Burlington Northern and Montana Railroad, which is local to Montana at a corporate level. And then they both retired, and Cliff and his wife, Darla, went off to go live in a little cabin in the woods. And I think I posted a video recently showing kind of the road on the way out there to go visit them down by the creek. And they're just unpretentious, welcoming people, the kind of folks who would always do their best to help others and always be more than willing to open their home and their heart and their time to guests. As a matter of fact, I'm sure I could probably pack up and practically go live out there at their place, and they would love it just because they'd have company. But it's kind of difficult for me to make myself want to go visit them, because it's also super easy for a 1 hour visit to turn into a 7-hour visit, and then you realize you haven't done anything else with your day other than go pay that visit. But anyway, long story short, Cooper is their son, and he also works for Walmart in town. And so because I was friends with Cliff and his wife, I also became friends as a result with Cooper, their son. And so we'll hang out as well. And we're pretty good friends, though. Again, it does wind up being one of those things where it often feels like, despite the fact that we are good friends, it's easy to want to kind of limit how much we hang out. Like, I don't just get up every day and say I want to go hang out with these folks, because I don't know if I necessarily have exactly the same interests, and I don't know if I necessarily want to hang out with folks all day. And so it just all winds up to be a thing where you hang out once in a while, if that's how it works out, you know. And certainly have been trying to do that a little more often, since I won't be around for a while. And I know we say things like, you know, you're always welcome to visit, and that's certainly true. I'd absolutely be happy to give a Northwest Arkansas welcome to old friends if they decide to visit. But you know, the reality is people aren't going to decide, hey, why don't I go on a vacation to go find, you know, a friend that I have not seen for a while, 1,500 miles away. Like, that's just not really exactly how it works out usually. So I think it's better to just accept the fact that you're really just going to say goodbye to folks and goodbye to places, and then start over and you make new connections. But that doesn't mean that you can't still, you know, say send a text message or something of that nature, maybe just a random photo of something, and you know, stay in touch with some people, even if you're not exactly going to be hanging out every day. In any case, as we wrapped up at the fair, because there didn't seem to be a huge amount to do there, we moved on to the little walking mall downtown and grabbed a bite to eat and hung around there a little bit and checked out the folks milling around at the ice cream shop, and started to make our way toward the end of town to hike up to the little hill, the bluff at the end, and look out. And that's kind of what the rest of this video winds up being. In any case, I really just kind of wanted to devote this video to bringing everyone up to speed on what my week has been. Crazy thing is, there hasn't really been a lot going on, so it feels kind of surreal in a way when you start to realize that you wake up in the morning and you don't really have anything going on, and you don't have any emails to reply to, you don't really have any text messages you need to reply to. You don't really have anybody reaching out. It's just this silent space. And that can be a bit unsettling, I suppose. And it also can be a thing where it's super easy to wind up getting unproductive with your time, just like sleeping in super late, or even if it's just something like saying, I'm going to go bicycling down a certain trail, or I'm going to go off to, go hike around a lake, or whatever it was that I wanted to go do. With the time I have, it's easy to start to kind of drift a bit, and then you wind up feeling like you're, maybe a little bit more in a funk and not really feeling excited about every day. It's kind of like how, if you've ever thought about it, I know I have, when I would go to work every day, I would find that sometimes I'd go home after work and I would do a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do. And then when the weekend rolls around, I wind up feeling like I got done in 2 days of being off about the same amount as I might have gotten done on a weekday evening, just because on the weekday evening I kind of know I have a limited amount of time, so I don't dilly-dally and I focus on doing what I actually had planned to do. Whereas on the weekend, you go into that mode of thinking, well, I've got all weekend, so there's no need for me to do the laundry now. And the next thing you know, it took 2 days to do a load of laundry just because you went into procrastination mode. And I think it's important, especially when you find yourself in moments of not having a lot to do, to both be conscious about what you want to do and make a point to do those things, and then also make a point to actively enjoy it. And I do think that I've been enjoying my time, and I'm not really out to say that it's a horse race to be super productive, because the truth of the matter is I don't have a lot that I need to be doing right now. Like I have a pretty decent amount of time to find a new job to take with my company, and I 100% expect that job to be in Northwest Arkansas, and I'm gonna be there the first week or so of next month. So I really feel like I might as well just get settled in, get the move done, and then when I'm down there, then I can go into full job hunting mode and 100% be committed to say, I'm here in town, I'm ready to work, and I don't have any other business that I need to do before I can begin. And I think that's a good place to start, especially considering that being in town, I'll be able to actually connect with people in person if that's an option, to go shake somebody's hand or go to the office or meet somebody. And I really do believe in a time when we've become so distant with each other and so inclined to do things via email and text and stuff like that. If you can just connect with people on a very personal level and in a very direct way, that can be an asset. In any case, let's see. I guess today, as I make this video, my plan is to go around the reservoir, and that's like a little duck pond, kind of a lake. It's interesting because the way the Helena Valley works, you have a network of dams along the Missouri River, and they route water throughout the entire valley. So the water routes from the dam on the Missouri into the reservoir, which is a man-made lake, and then that feeds through a lot of different irrigation channels throughout the valley, which then feeds back into another man-made lake, which we call Lake Helena, and then that feeds back into the Missouri further downstream, which is pretty cool because it is just a great example of how man-made waterworks turned this particular valley surrounding Helena into a abundant agricultural area, which it probably wouldn't have been if it weren't for the irrigation projects. I also think about how beautiful the town really is. It's not, it's not a place that I would ever look at and say, I regret the time being there. I would never have anything but positive things to say about the layout of the town and the walkability of it, being able to just get up and walk out the front door and go downtown without even having to get in the car, or to walk to the edge of town and be able to climb up any number of these hills and just look out and admire the scenery, and to feel like you're surrounded by nature and wilderness even when you haven't really left town. I think that's really cool. And I don't know if it's like that in Northwest Arkansas. Probably not to the degree it is in any place in Montana. We have a lot of deer that like to walk everywhere. I don't know if they're really special, but it is kind of nice to see them, and can't really go anywhere in or out of town without seeing a lot of deer. Later on this week, I suppose I'll be going to, I think I'll probably go to Missoula, head out of town again with Cooper, and we'll go maybe say hello to a few of the folks who work in some of the stores over there, and hang out, grab a bite to eat, and look around town. Tomorrow, I think I'll be going with my old boss to climb up Mount Helena, one of the bigger hills here in town. And we'll do a little bit of afternoon hiking, which will probably be our last official hanging out together time before I head out of town. In a freak accident, we did have a small airplane crash here in town this week. A man flying a small aircraft slid across the ground and plowed into a shed. And, nobody was injured, and the only thing that was lost was the corner of a shed and probably a small aircraft and that man's dignity. But it was one of those interesting things that gets people's attention in a pretty small town. I've been playing City Skylines, building a replica of Bentonville, Arkansas in that game. So that took up a fair amount of my time. And I've been just walking along on the treadmill in my home office and getting in my exercise and my steps, and watching a few TV shows. I was watching a TV show called Messiah on Netflix, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was kind of about a Jesus-like figure who appeared and started stirring up all sorts of chaos as people followed him around. And I think I still have 3 episodes left to watch to find out how it all goes. But I do think that it's interesting to consider what would happen if the Jesus, if there was a Jesus, what would happen if he showed up and came back to, to visit Earth today. Do you think that the Christians would be willing to accept a real Jesus, or would they reject him because the things that people think of as being true religion don't necessarily align with the actual teachings of the figure that we think of as Jesus? Because Jesus tended to believe in eschewing material things. He tended to believe in loving others more than yourself. And I think in our Western society, we really aren't particularly into the idea of loving anything more than ourself. Something to think about. And there is the fire tower, the old fire tower that was built so that folks could sit up in there and watch over the town to see if it was beginning to burn down. And the reason why it was important is because the town did burn down before, which is a bit interesting. Now it's just a landmark and the official mascot against the backdrop of Mount Helena there. A nice little walk around town, nice views of downtown from in it and above it. And that was how we ended our walk that particular afternoon. As I make this video, it seems to be raining heavily. I can hear it beating against the wall. That's one interesting thing about Montana. It doesn't rain very much, but then once in a while you get a real vigorous hailstorm or thunderstorm or something like that. But it usually only lasts for a few minutes. Anyways, that's the old Masonic Lodge. And that's where we end our video. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.